I'm going to introduce if statements with these 4 examples here. So I'm going to write a program that'll say freezing if the inputted temperature is below 0 or below. Then I'm going to say teenager if an age is between 13 and 19 inclusive. Then I'm going to say add a tip if a customer says yes. Then I'm going to say add a tip if a customer says anything that resembles yes. So these are 4 little example programs to show you how if statements work in Python. Okay, so our first one, say freezing if the entered temperature is 0 or below. So first off, the person has to enter a temperature. So I'm going to say temperature equals input enter temperature. And then I'm going to say temperature is equal to int temperature. Now, before you're watching a video on if statements, you should already know what these things mean here. So first off, this is a variable, and the word variable in computer science is really referring to a spot in memory under that particular label. So there's a spot in the computer's memory, and it's labeled temperature. Now, whatever the person types in response to enter temperature is going to go into that spot in memory under the label temperature. We call that a variable. I'm then converting the data type so that Python knows that what was entered is an integer, and we'll deal with it as such, not a string of characters. Then I'm going to say if temperature is less than or equal to 0, then I'm going to print freezing. Okay, so they've entered something called temperature, and I'm converting it to an integer. And if its value is less than or equal to 0, then I'm going to print the word freezing. Because remember, that's what our goal is. Say freeze if temperature is 0 or below. So let's go ahead and run that. So now it's asking me to enter a temperature. I'm going to say 5, and it's going to say nothing. I'm going to run it again. It's asking me the temperature. I'm going to say 0, and it's going to say freezing. I'm going to run it again. And I'm going to say -12, and it's going to say freezing. Okay, so something to watch for here is I put less than or equal to 0. If I put strictly less than 0, now watch what happens. Now the value 0 does not get caught. So if we have less than, it's going to check to see that the temperature is strictly less than. If I put less than followed by an equal sign, the condition will be true, and this is going to run if it is less than or equal to that value. Okay, so that's our first little task here. And let's look at the second one. Say teenager if age is between 13 and 19 inclusive. Okay, so my second task, I'm going to say the word teenager if the age is between 13 and 19 inclusive. So let's get rid of that example. And if you're wondering what this hashtag is, that makes this a comment. A comment is something you type in that you want the computer to ignore. So that's a note for a person reading the program, but it's not an instruction for the computer to follow. So now I want to know a person's age. So age is equal to input, enter, age. Then I'm going to convert age to an integer. I'll do a whole other video on data types to explain in a little more detail why. Now, if, and my condition is, if the age is between 13 and 19 inclusive. So I'm going to say if the age is greater than or equal to 13 and the age is less than or equal to 19. Print teenager. Okay, now something to watch for here. I've got that keyword and, so this section of code here will be run if this condition and this condition, that condition I should say, is true. So if both of these conditions are true, it will say teenager. What I see a lot of people do is they'll type things that make a lot of sense, like if, and they'll type it out as you would in math. So if, say, 13 is less than age, which is less than 19. But unfortunately, this is not going to quite work out. It's not going to recognize that. So here we're trying to simultaneously compare three things, and it doesn't do it. It'll compare two things, and it'll compare another two things, and that's how we achieve the three-way comparison between the age, the number 13, and the number 19. So let me go ahead and run this. Enter age. So I enter age 10, and it says nothing. Enter age. So I enter age 15, and it says teenager. Enter age. I enter age 43, and it says nothing. So this will say teenager if the age is between 13 and 19 inclusive. Now inclusive means including the endpoints. Let's make sure those endpoints work. So let me just run that one more time. Enter age 13, and yes, 13 is a teenager. What if, for example, I didn't want to include the endpoints? So exclusive. So let's say teenager if the age is between, let's make that 12 and 20. Now, this program already does that because including 13, including everything greater than or equal to 13 is the same thing as including everything strictly greater than 12. But I'm going to program it this way as the statement now says. So how about changing this from greater than or equal to greater than, strictly greater than. And let's change that one from less than or equal to strictly less than. Now, strictly greater than 12 and strictly less than 20. So just a different approach at achieving exactly the same thing. So I'm going to go ahead and run that. So again, 12 is not a teenager, and 13 is. So let me recap this. If we have two conditions, we state each of the conditions, and we separate them by the word and. Now, the word if and the word and are reserved keywords in Python. You don't get to use them for anything other than their intended use. Let me go on to the third example. Add a tip if a customer says yes. Okay. So let's say we're tipping at 15%. So let's have some total. I don't know, that's our total bill. Let's say our total was, I don't know, $14. And then I'm going to ask, so tip equals input. Would you like to add a tip? And then if they say yes, so if tip equals yes, then total is equal to total times 1.15. So what am I doing here in this line? Total is $14. However, if they want to add a tip, I'm going to make total equal to whatever it was multiplied by 1.15. And you know what that does? That adds 15%. It's a little math trick to add 15%. And now let's verify whether or not this works. So at the very end, print the total is, and whatever it is. So I'm going to put total there. Okay, so let me go ahead and run this. Would you like to add a tip? Yes. So the total is 16.09. Let me round this so it comes off a bit better. So I'm going to round that. I'm going to round it to 2 decimal places. Would you like to add a tip? Yes. So the total is 16.1. Okay. So $16.10 from rounded up from 14. Okay. One thing to watch for. See the double equal sign? That double equal sign is required because we're checking to see if something is true. Let me make it a single equal sign just so you can watch this not work. That single equal sign gives it a value. It doesn't check to see if it has a value. Here I'm using a single equal sign to give this a value. If I put in a single equal sign, then the problem is no matter what I say, it'll always be true because it's at that value. Well, it looks like it's even catching that as a syntax error. Whenever you're checking, you need a double equal sign to check to see if it's true. Okay, so I'm going to say no. So now my total is $14. Okay, here's a drawback to this program. What if I said yes with a capital Y? It did not add a tip. See, it's checking just to see if it has YES, all lowercase. If whatever I write is not exactly that, then this if statement does not see that condition as being true. So I can't write yes, I can't write yeah, I can't write okay, I can't write sure. Any of those things that a person may plausibly answer are not going to work. It has to be yes with a lowercase y. So that's a minor drawback, and in the next question I'll show you how to deal with that. Okay, so our final if example, add a tip if a customer says anything that resembles yes. Okay, so let's modify this program. I'll put in a comment to say it's going to add a tip if a customer says anything that resembles yes. Okay, so let's just try it for now. So let's say their bill was 20 bucks. And if they say yes, we're going to add 15%. So would you like to add a tip? Yes. So it adds 15%. It's gone up to 23. And let me run that one more time. And I say yes with a capital Y. And it does not round it up because it's looking for yes written exactly this way. Okay, so my first option here is I can convert it to lowercase. That way, everything's lowercase and I only have to check lowercase. So that's often a really good place to start. So I'm going to say tip is equal to tip dot lower. So what does dot lower do? It converts all letters to lowercase letters. I can show you real quick in the shell. So let's say name is equal to Dan. If I go print name dot lower, it will convert every letter to lowercase. By doing that, whatever the person writes, if they put in all capitals, it's going to convert them to lowercase, and then this is going to work. So this is going to be one step improvement here. Let me run that. Would you like to add a tip? Yes, all caps. And it adds a tip. It goes from 20 up to 23. So it's added my 15%. But what if they say sure, or yeah, or okay, or just put a Y? All those should be interpreted as yes. So instead of an equal sign, I'm going to say if tip is in. And I'm going to check to see if it's in a list. So my list is defined with these square brackets. And I'm going to make my list contain yes, sure, just a Y, okay. I don't know, let's throw in Spanish and say sí. Maybe a bit of French, oui. I may be spelling that wrong. I apologize if I am. So we've got yes, sure, why, okay, see, we, yeah. All right. And fine. Because if someone's a little passive aggressive, they might say fine, also meaning yes. Okay. Now it's going to check. It's going to ask the person, would you like to add a tip? And then whatever they say goes in the variable tip. It gets converted to lowercase. That's why I'm only using lowercase letters here. And once I convert it to lowercase, if whatever they write is in this list of yes, sure, why, okay, see, we, yeah, all right, fine, it's going to add 15%. So let's go ahead and run that. Would you like to add a tip? So what can I say here? Capital Y, and it adds it. Now, a capital Y is not here, but remember, whatever the person types, this little trick here converts it to lowercase. So that capital Y became a lowercase y, and it found it in the list. Let's try a few more of these. Would you like to add a tip? Let's see. So it's been added. Now, what if there's something we didn't anticipate? That's the only possible problem. So if you put okay, we anticipated that. But if you put, I guess, well, it doesn't add it because we didn't anticipate that. So as you go, you might find that you need to add more things. See, things should continually improve. So we're going to teach it that I guess also means the affirmative. So now would you like to add a tip? I guess. And it adds it. Okay, so let me recap. We got it to say freeze if the temperature is 0 or below by saying if temperature is less than or equal to 0. So we typed that out as less than, let me change the color so you can see it a bit better. So temperature was less than or equal to 0. So that was our temperature. Say teenager if the age is between 13 and 19 inclusive. So how do we go about doing that? we check to see if the age was greater than or equal to 13, and if the age was less than or equal to 19. We then check to see if the customer said yes. So the way we did that was we took the word tip and we checked to see if the word tip was equal to yes. Now, we use a double equal sign. Don't forget that. You need two equal signs when you're checking to see if something's true. So if you have an if statement, it's got to be followed by two equal signs, followed by a colon, and then remember the code afterwards was indented. So the part of the program that's only to run if this is true has to be indented. And then finally, we added a tip if the customer said anything that resembled the word yes. So in that last one, we checked to see if whatever they entered, and that was after converting it to lowercase, was in our list of all possible things that mean yes. So it was like yes, yeah, okay, see. And you could always add to the list as you learn more things that a person might use to say yes.